All right, continuing on with the cock.
With the cock.
Yeah.
Late night cock, because it's
12 or
almost
11,
12.
23.
Yep.
All right, Dreams in the Witch House. Now, we have compared this show to being essentially the modern Masters of Horror. And ironically, Masters of Horror also adapted this very story. But this one does it a little bit more authentically, as far as the time period goes, because the other one makes it more modern day. This one does take it back in the past. Now, I know Kaylee wasn't huge on this one.
I wasn't. And I really, I can't quite put my finger on why I wasn't big on it, because there's a few visual elements that I liked a lot in this episode, and I think the acting was fine, but for some reason I was just blah on it, and I don't know. Maybe when we talk about it, I'll kind of start to get a sense for why I didn't
You don't have to like it.
I know, but I like to have reasons. I like to have something to point to, oh, this bothered me, or I didn't like this part of it, or whatever.
You're just prejudiced. You don't like gingers.
That's got nothing to
what
do
it is.
with it. Not at all.
If you're a ginger, you should unsubscribe because she hates you.
What? This is misinformation. I'm fine with gingers.
Oh, she can't even say your name right.
Listen.
She thinks you have gingivitis.
No.
Yeah.
Redheads are okay.
All right, so we got Ronald Weasley.
Yes.
How dare you take your father's car? I don't know what that voice is.
I don't know, but I love it.
I'm always a big fan of seeing Rupert Grint in anything. He is in a TV show that we watch called Servant. And he's definitely made some cool stuff. All three of them, all three of the mains from Harry Potter, have had some really fun careers ever since they left. A lot of times with kid actors, they are, kind of never heard from again. They do one thing after, and then no one takes them seriously. But Emma and Daniel and Rupert were able to kind of,
they broke out of that, and they're all just so talented. So
sure.
That I think
even Draco Malfoy.
Yeah.
And shit, Robert Pattinson has had one hell of a career since being Cedric Diggory, but
gosh,
that's not like a main character.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But for the kids, you know, a lot of the kids that were in it, it's great to see.
Yes, I agree. So, I liked seeing him in this for sure. I was excited.
Yeah. So, we had commented on, or I shouldn't say we, I should say I. What this reminded me of in the opening was Fox Mulder in the X-Files. You've got this kid, he sees his sister abducted, and he spends his life trying to figure out what the hell happened to his sister. He wants her back. He starts working for this institute that looks into weird cases, and they kind of shun him for his work. It was very X-Files.
Very X-Files for sure.
And his partner almost serves as a Scully of sorts, who's just like, let's bring it back down to earth a bit, and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that actor plays a Rondir in the Lord of the Rings of Power show. So it was cool to see.
Yeah.
This was directed, and I think that, this might have something to do with it. This was the director of Twilight. So, they don't have the best body of work. And
I don't know anything other than Twilight. It's only the first Twilight that they directed?
Yeah. From what I saw. I'm not an expert on Twilight directors, honestly.
Yeah. You should be.
So they go to this con artist fortune teller in the beginning. Of course, he wants to believe. Sound familiar? And he then figures out that she is a fraud. This gets him bummed, but then he meets these native men who take him on a vision quest. And he uses these drugs to see the other side. And of course, as anybody would suspect, and I would be on the side of these people, they don't really see this as very good evidence that you took drugs and saw something when you wanted to.
Like, oh, you were high?
Yeah, and not only high, but very easily impressionable,
yes.
because this is your goal in life. This is your, passion.
Yeah, it's definitely like, oh, you had, it's what you wanted, right?
Yes, self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's what I was thinking of.
Now, while he's in the dream world, or whatever the hell it is on the other plane, he is able to Nancy this Freddy hat and pull up his sister's sleeve through with him. So now he knows it's gots to be real. Which he brings it back, and as I said, I totally understand the perspective of this organization, which was something real, right? You said that was a big thing. The place he was going, it had a name, and you were saying like, oh yeah, that was a big thing back in the early 1900s or whatever.
I do not remember.
No? Okay.
I'm sorry, maybe it'll come.
She's on drugs too.
No,
yeah.
I just don't remember it.
But it is kind of interesting how, like, they're sending him out into the field to put together evidence to try to prove something, otherworldly, paranormal, whatever. And when he comes back with, like, potential evidence, they're like, get lost. That is an odd reaction to, like, the whole point of you guys. Not like he works there as a janitor, or like that this is some school of botany, right? This is what they do.
Yes.
And he's coming back to tell them, like, yo, like, maybe we haven't explored all options here, and that the reason we're not able to transcend or cross that line is because we need some kind of guide. We need some kind of key to open the door, and maybe that thing is drugs. And it is kind of funny because in the 60s and other, right, they really were heavily experimenting with, like, DMT and all these different kinds of drugs to see what they could break through to in the mind.
And that's been going on. People have been using psychedelics in, like, a spiritual and religious sense for so
forever.
Long. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a new concept, and it is definitely one that's really fascinating. Especially when you take something like DMT, where people have such insanely similar experiences, that are just kind of outside the realm of a normal, what we would think of as just like a drug trip. So I really think that is a fascinating concept, and I like, this idea that it would be really hard for people to come to terms with it, because it's sort of like you have to experience it to really believe. And even then, I think that the skeptical, side of you could definitely write it off as just a drug-induced experience versus a drug kind of opening some, doorway to consciousness that we don't normally have access to with our regular minds.
Yeah. Yeah, or it's just drugs.
Or it's just drugs. It's like,
or you just drugs.
But it's cool, and it's kind of scary.
It's an avenue to explore,
right?
but they heavily explored it. Now, what their findings were, I'm not sure, but remains to be seen, I suppose. All right, so he goes on his little vision quest, as I had said, pulls their shit through, and then gets booted. So he goes to start staying in the witch house, because this is where he's being drawn from this paintings that he saw in his vision. And then he meets the artist there. I really loved this idea of these triangle paintings that are, these separate pieces on their own and look like these completed things. and then when she's like placing them together, it gives you the full picture. Another nod to some great, beautiful artistry here from a very talented person who was asked to paint these triangle cube things that fit together as one cohesive piece that tell this kind of story that they're going for. So
yeah,
amazing
really
artistry
cool.
there. So whether you're not like the episode, whether or not you like the episode, doesn't matter. The art was really cool. So yeah, like in the story and in the episode of Masters of Horror, we do get the rat with the human face.
That's one of the parts that I liked.
Sure.
Because it's so creepy. It's so off-putting and scary and... Ugh. Just, it's terrifying.
I mean, animals with human faces,
yes.
right? I mean, it's always it's always off-putting. You've got them in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. You've got them throughout all sorts of different films. And it's always just... It's unsettling because it's so abnormal.
Yeah. Animals with any human body part really is just like... To give a dog human hands... No.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it should definitely be very odd. All right. And I think we'll both agree on this. The witch in this looked awesome.
Yes.
Right. Very cool creature design. Was a big fan of it. I haven't seen Darkness Falls in a long time, but for some reason it's reminding me of it in my head, but I could be full of shit on that. It almost reminded me of the one of the characters in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
Like the witch.
The Wraith. Is it the Wraith? Oh, no, not the Wraith.
You played it way more than me.
I don't remember what her name is, but I know what you're talking about. I think that, like the effect of her eyes glowing in the darkness.
Well, they're like literal fires burning in her eyes.
Yes, yeah. And then, but like just seeing the lights glowing and then it kind of turned, she comes forward. I loved all the stuff with the witch. Like that's kind of the thing. I thought everything with her was really cool and I loved the design. It's just all the other kind of ancillary stuff that I was like, just not connecting on.
Sure. I can see that. I really, really enjoyed the design of her, like, physiology, where, like, her skin looked like it was made out of wood.
Yeah. Yeah, it was rad. That was really, really cool. That was
super cool. She looked like some evil Groot.
Yes. Absolutely.
But, yeah. And... Then he brings his sister back through after fighting this thing, and his sister is still a ghost, living in the world, and she has this like rainbow shimmer that's coming off her the whole time, and they're like trying to find her a way to stay. And so he goes and talks to this artist, and she kind of reminded me of the woman in Jeepers Creepers, who's like, my visions always come true.
Yeah. This, so when he was going to get his sister, like when he was in the other world, it kind of reminded me, and I'm totally blanking on the name, so I don't know if you'll remember it. I'm also not remembering. I thought it was Korean, but it for sure is an Asian movie where the closet, I think it was Korean. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Closet what?
Where the kids would like go into the closet and they basically would get trapped in there and die.
Oh, yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, it reminded me a bit of that, too.
The name of that movie was?
I don't know. I know that's like, for people watching, they're going to be like, what?
Yeah, the dad's kid dies while he's, like, working. And then he brings this, like, medium into the house who wants to come upstairs. And then, like, he has a very aggressive relationship with that guy.
Yeah.
Because the guy, like, keeps coming and, like, is pestering him over and over again.
Yeah.
To, like, let him be there.
Yeah, because his daughter disappears in her closet. Yeah. And is missing.
Which
it was actually a
very,
pretty cool
and
movie.
I think I definitely compared that heavily to House. With Mickey. With William Catt. Anyways, back to the...
That's just what that reminded me of.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, essentially in the end here, it's like he does save her. it's just not in the way he wanted, right? Like, he wanted her back. But in reality, he just helps her move on. She dies and is too afraid, so she continues to stay on Earth. And I was like, kind of, that hit me, right? Because, like, I do have a tremendous fear of death. And I'm like, oh man, like, what if my fear gets me trapped on this freaking Earth and I can't move on to some better place because, you know, I'm too afraid to. So I didn't like how that hit me when I was listening to it. So that definitely resonated with me. And I quite liked that. And I do call bullshit. This happens a lot. This happens a lot in movies. But, like, they go up into the attic and they're like, oh my God, what's that smell? And then they, like, pull open, like, the one door that's up there, and, like, there's her corpse.
Yeah.
And it's like,
like,
no one ever found this. Come on. There's people living in this house. There's people who are renting this place out.
100%.
You've never found this body.
There's
Come
no way.
on.
Yeah.
So asinine. Like, if they're smelling it this many years later when there's nothing left of her, whoever was there before was smelling it
full on
as a body's rotting in the house. I mean,
there's no way you'd ignore it.
So dumb. But maybe once he, like, goes into her side and pulls them through or whatever, that's when her body comes back.
Maybe.
Her bones. I'll go with that. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'll try here. But then, yeah, in the end, much like in the second one, Graveyard Rats, this rat starts, it comes out and, like, rips through his chest and takes control of his body.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I was actually really into that ending. So yeah, I feel like I like more of the episode than I thought I did, but at the same time, it's definitely my least favorite of all of them so far.
It's the lowest rated episode, so I think everybody else is with you. I liked it more than you did, but yeah, I mean, I'd probably put it on the same level as Pickman's Model. I'm just kind of very, like, it was fine. Like, I'm glad I watched it. I don't really have any interest in watching it again.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be horribly opposed in the future if we were like, oh, let's, you know, the second season was coming out, and it's like, oh, let's just go right through the first season again. You know, I'd be okay with that, right?
I'd give it
but
another
I'm not, like,
shot.
dying to get back to it, you know. But there's other episodes I would love to watch again.
Yeah.
Right. So this one's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yep.
It's all right.
Moving on.
Okay. Bye.